Picture this scenario because it is a financial nightmare that is currently unfolding in millions of American households, likely including yours, even if you don't realize it yet. You're 67 years old. You did everything right. You saved diligently for 40 years. You maxed out your 401k. You lived below your means. You invested in a diversified portfolio of index funds. You followed every piece of conventional retirement advice. And you made it. You hit the magic number. You have $1 million in your retirement accounts. You retired feeling confident, feeling accomplished, feeling like you won the game. The financial advisors told you that $1 million was enough. The retirement calculators told you that you could safely withdraw $40,000 a year following the 4% rule and your money would last 30 years. You believed them. You trusted the system. But now, 3 years into retirement, you're looking at your account balance and something is very wrong. You should have around $900,000 left, but you don't. You have $780,000. You've burned through $220,000 in 3 years when you should have only burned through $120,000. You're ahead of schedule on depleting your savings by almost a decade. And you're terrified because you just realized that at this rate, you're going to run out of money by age 78, not 95. You have 11 years of money left, not 28. What happened? You didn't go crazy. You didn't buy a yacht. You didn't gamble in Vegas. You just lived. You paid your bills. You handled emergencies. You helped your kids. You did normal, reasonable things that normal, reasonable people do. But those normal, reasonable things are systematically destroying your retirement savings at a pace you never anticipated and nobody warned you about. Picture this, and this is the retirement crisis that nobody talks about. Not the crisis of not having enough saved. That one gets plenty of attention. This is the crisis of having what looks like enough saved, but watching it evaporate anyway because of expenses that the retirement planning industry either ignores, underestimates, or deliberately hides from you. These are the stealth expenses, the retirement killers, the line items that don't show up in the pretty retirement projections, but show up very clearly in your actual bank statement. My name is John, and I spend way too much time analyzing the gap between retirement planning theory and retirement living reality. If you are someone approaching retirement or already retired and you're watching your savings drained faster than expected, or if you're planning for retirement and want to know what actually costs money, not what the calculator tells you will cost money, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Because today, we're not talking about accumulation strategies or asset allocation. We're talking about the 12 expenses that will absolutely destroy your retirement, even if you have $1 million saved, why the financial industry doesn't warn you about them, and what you can do to protect yourself before it's too late. Let's start with the most devastating one, the expense that bankrupts more retirees than any other single factor. Expense 1, healthcare before Medicare. If you retire at 62, which is when most Americans actually retire, you have 3 years until Medicare kicks in at 65. 3 years where you need private health insurance. And private health insurance for a 62-year-old couple is obscenely expensive. We're talking $1,500 to $2,500 per month. That's $18,000 to $30,000 per year just for the premiums before you pay a single dollar for actual health care. And those premiums are for high-deductible plans. You're probably looking at a $5,000 to $8,000 deductible per person. So if you actually get sick, if you actually use the insurance, you're paying the premiums plus the deductible. A couple retiring at 62 can easily spend $50,000 to $60,000 on health care in those 3 years before Medicare. That's 5% to 6% of $1 million nest egg gone before you even hit 65. The retirement calculators ask you, what age will you retire? And you type in 62, and they calculate your expenses, but they don't adequately account for this massive healthcare gap. They assume Medicare from day one, or they use some average healthcare cost that doesn't reflect the reality of pre-Medicare private insurance pricing. John, you're thinking, once I hit 65, Medicare takes over and healthcare gets cheaper, right? Wrong. Medicare is not free. You're going to pay premiums for Medicare Part B, around $175 per month per person, and that's just the base. If you earn over certain income thresholds, you pay more. Then you need Medicare Part D for prescription drug coverage, another $30 to $100 per month depending on the plan. Then you need a Medigap supplemental policy to cover what Medicare doesn't cover, another $150 to $300 per month per person. Add it up. A couple on Medicare is paying $700 to $1,200 per month just in premiums for comprehensive coverage. That's $8,400 to $14,400 per year. And that's before any out-of-pocket costs, prescriptions, dental work, vision, or hearing aids, which Medicare doesn't cover. The average couple retiring at 65 today will spend approximately $315,000 on health care throughout retirement, according to Fidelity's estimates. That's almost one-third of a $1 million retirement account. One-third. Gone, just on staying alive and reasonably healthy. Expense 3, long-term care. This is the nuclear bomb in the retirement plan. This is the expense that can take a $1 million portfolio to zero in 18 months. Long-term care is not medical care, it's custodial care. It's help with daily living activities like bathing, dressing, eating, moving around. Medicare doesn't cover it. Regular health insurance doesn't cover it. Medicaid only covers it after you've spent down all your assets and become destitute. A private room in a nursing home costs, on average, $108,000 per year nationally, and significantly more in expensive states. In California or New York, you're looking at $150,000 to $180,000 per year. Assisted living facilities are cheaper but still expensive, around $54,000 per year nationally. In-home care, which is what most people prefer, costs $30 to $50 per hour depending on location. If you need full-time in-home care, that's $60,000 to $100,000 per year. The average person who needs long-term care needs it for about 3 years. Let's do the math. 3 years in a nursing home at $108,000 per year is $324,000. 3 years of full-time in-home care at $75,000 per year is $225,000. And remember, we're talking about average costs. If you need care for 5 years or 7 years, or if both spouses need care, you can burn through $1 million shockingly fast. The retirement planning industry tells you to buy long-term care insurance, and that's good advice if you bought it in your 50s. But if you're buying it in your 60s, the premiums are so high that you're almost better off self-insuring. A 65-year-old couple paying $6,000 to $8,000 per year for long-term care insurance for 20 years is spending $120,000 to $160,000 in premiums alone, and the policy might not even cover the full cost of care when you need it. Expense 4. Supporting adult children. This is the expense nobody puts in their retirement plan, but almost everyone ends up paying. Your kids are struggling. Maybe they graduated with $80,000 in student loans. Maybe they're working gig jobs without benefits. Maybe they can't afford a house. Maybe they got divorced and need help. Maybe they have kids of their own and need child care assistance. And you, the parent, the grandparent, you feel obligated to help because that's what parents do. So you pay for their car repair. You help with their rent. You pay for your grandkids' birthday parties and Christmas presents and school supplies. You co-sign their apartment lease. You let them move back home and don't charge rent. You pay for their health insurance. You give them $500 here and $1,000 there because they're in a tight spot. A 2021 study found that 45% of parents are providing financial support to their adult children, and they're providing an average of $1,400 per month. Per month! That's $168,000 per year. Over a 20-year retirement, that's $336,000. That's one-third of your retirement account going to your kids instead of sustaining your own retirement. I'm not saying don't help your kids. I'm saying recognize that this is a massive, undisclosed expense that will drain your retirement savings faster than almost anything else. And you need to set boundaries or you will end up broke while making your kids temporarily comfortable. The average expense 5. The lifestyle creep nobody talks about. You retire. You suddenly have 40 to 50 hours per week of free time. And free time costs money. When you were working, you were too busy to spend money. You were at the office. You brown-bagged your lunch. You were too tired to go out on weeknights. Your spending was naturally constrained by your schedule. Now you're retired. You have time. You go out to lunch 3 times a week because you're meeting friends. You play golf twice a week. You join a country club or a tennis club because you need social activities. You take up expensive hobbies like woodworking or photography because you finally have time for your passions. You travel more because that's what retirement is for, right? Every retirement seminar shows pictures of couples walking on beaches and playing golf and traveling Europe. They sell you this vision of active, fulfilling retirement. But that lifestyle costs significantly more than your working lifestyle cost, even though you're not commuting or buying work clothes anymore. The retirement calculators tell you that you'll need 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income, but for many people, especially people who were busy working and not spending much on leisure, retirement expenses end up being 90% to 100% of pre-retirement expenses, or even more, because you're finally doing all the things you postponed while working. Expense 6, home maintenance and repairs. You own your home. The mortgage is paid off. You think, great, my housing is free. But housing is never free. Property taxes keep increasing, 3 to 5% per year in many areas. Homeowners insurance keeps increasing, especially in areas prone to natural disasters. Utilities keep increasing. And then there are the big-ticket repairs. The roof needs replacing every 20 to 25 years. That's $15,000 to $30,000, depending on the size of your home. The HVAC system dies and needs replacing. That's $8,000 to $15,000. The water heater fails. The dishwasher breaks. The driveway needs repaving. The deck needs rebuilding. The plumbing springs a leak. The electrical panel needs upgrading. Financial planners tell you to budget 1% to 3% of your home's value annually for maintenance and repairs. If you own a $400,000 home, that's $4,000 to $12,000 per year. But expenses don't come in smooth annual amounts. They come in lumps. Nothing breaks for 3 years, and then in year 4, you need a new roof, a new HVAC, and your sewer line collapses. That's a $50,000 year. If you're living on a fixed retirement income and pulling 4% from your portfolio, a $50,000 emergency wipes out more than a full year of withdrawals. And you can't defer these expenses. You can defer a vacation. You can't defer a broken furnace in January or a leaking roof. Expense 7. Cars and transportation. You think you'll spend less on transportation in retirement because you're not commuting, but you're also not getting rid of your cars. You still need to drive to the grocery store, to the doctor, to visit friends and family. And cars don't last forever. A new car costs on average $48,000 today. A decent used car costs $25,000 to $30,000. If you're retired for 30 years and you replace your cars every 10 years, you're buying 6 cars. Even if you're buying used cars at $25,000 each, that's $150,000 just on vehicle purchases over your retirement. Add in insurance, gas, maintenance, registration, and repairs, and you're easily spending $8,000 to $12,000 per year on transportation as a couple. That's $240,000 to $360,000 over a 30-year retirement just on cars. Nobody puts that in their retirement budget. They think, I don't have a car payment, so transportation is cheap. It's not cheap, it's just irregular. Expense 8. Inflation on everything else. The retirement calculators account for inflation. They typically use 3% per year, but that's an average, and averages hide reality. Healthcare inflation runs at 5 to 7% per year. Housing costs inflate at 3 to 5% per year, depending on location. Food prices can spike 8 to 10% in a single year, like they did in 2022 and 2023. Retire at 65 with expenses of $60,000 per year, and you live to 95. Your expenses in year 30 of retirement will be approximately $140,000 per year at 3% inflation. Your costs more than double. The 4% rule assumes you increase your withdrawals by inflation every year to maintain purchasing power, but it's based on historical averages. If we hit a period of sustained higher inflation, the 4% rule breaks. If inflation runs at 4% instead of 3% for 20 years, your money runs out years earlier than planned. A 1% difference in inflation compounded over 30 years is the difference between dying with money left over and dying broke. Expense 9. Taxes nobody planned for. You have $1 million in your 401k. Congratulations! You know how much of that is actually yours? About $750,000 to $800,000, depending on your tax bracket, because you haven't paid taxes on that money yet. Every dollar you withdraw is taxed as ordinary income. If you're withdrawing $50,000 per year and you're a married couple, you're probably in the 12% federal tax bracket, so you're paying about $6,000 per year in federal taxes, plus state taxes if you live in a state with income tax. Over 30 years, that's $180,000 in federal taxes alone. But wait, there's more. At age 73, required minimum distributions kick in. The government forces you to start withdrawing money from your retirement accounts whether you need it or not, and those withdrawals are taxed. If you have $800,000 at age 73, your RMD is approximately $30,000 in year one and increases every year after that. Those forced withdrawals can push you into higher tax brackets and trigger taxes on your Social Security benefits. And if you're unlucky enough to inherit a traditional IRA from your parents, the new rules require you to empty that account within 10 years, potentially creating massive tax bills in your retirement years. Expense 10. The sequence of returns risk. This one is technical but devastating. Let's say you retire with $1 million and you plan to withdraw $40,000 per year. If the market goes up 8% in year one, you're fine. Your account grows to $1.04 million even after your withdrawal. But if the market drops 20% in year one, your account drops to $760,000 after your withdrawal. You just lost $240,000 in 1 year. The order in which investment returns happen matters enormously when you're withdrawing money. If you get negative returns early in retirement, you're selling shares at depressed prices to fund your living expenses, and those shares never get to recover. This is called sequence of returns risk, and it's the reason two retirees with identical portfolios and identical withdrawal rates can have completely different outcomes based purely on whether they retired in 2006, right before the 2008 crash, or 2010, right after the recovery. The retirement calculators assume average returns. They say, assume 7% average annual returns. But you don't experience averages. You experience actual year-by-year returns. And if those actual returns are negative in your first 5 years of retirement, the 4% rule falls apart, and you're in serious trouble. Expense 11. Divorce, death, and unexpected life changes. You plan for retirement as a couple. You have combined Social Security benefits. You have economies of scale. You share a home, share a car, share expenses. And then you get divorced at age 68, or your spouse dies at age 72. Suddenly, your household income drops by one Social Security check, but your expenses don't drop proportionally. You still need a place to live. You still need a car. Your utilities don't get cut in half. Your property taxes don't change. Your health care costs might actually increase because you lost your spouse's supplemental insurance coverage. A household of one doesn't cost half as much as a household of two. It costs about 70 to 75% as much. So you went from 2 Social Security checks and joint retirement withdrawals covering 100% of couple expenses to 1 Social Security check and solo withdrawals trying to cover 75% of those expenses. The math doesn't work. You're burning through your savings faster because you didn't plan for this scenario. Nobody does. Expense 12. Everything else you forgot. Gifts for grandkids. Charitable donations because you've been donating to your church or your favorite causes for decades and you don't want to stop. Pet care because your dog needs surgery or ongoing medication. Technology upgrades because your computer dies and your phone becomes obsolete. Subscriptions that keep creeping up. Netflix, Amazon Prime, newspaper, gym membership. Clothing because you're not dead, you still need clothes. Entertainment because you want to go to movies and concerts and out to dinner with friends. These individually small expenses add up to $500 to $1,000 per month in costs that never appear in retirement budgets. That's $6,000 to $12,000 per year. That's $180,000 to $360,000 over a 30-year retirement. These are the death by 1,000 cuts expenses. Each one is justifiable. Each one is small, but collectively they destroy your carefully constructed retirement plan. So let's add it up. Let's see what a realistic retirement actually costs versus what the calculator tells you it costs. The calculator says $1 million portfolio, 4% withdrawal rate, $40,000 per year in expenses, money lasts 30 years. Simple, clean, neat. But reality says health care before Medicare, $50,000 over 3 years. Healthcare after Medicare, $12,000 per year average equals $324,000 over 27 years. Long-term care, $150,000 conservatively. Supporting adult children, $10,000 per year average equals $300,000. Home maintenance, $8,000 per year equals $240,000. Cars and transportation, $10,000 per year equals $300,000. Taxes on withdrawals, $6,000 per year average equals $180,000. Unexpected expenses and lifestyle, $10,000 per year equals $300,000. Expense? That's $1,844,000 in expenses over 30 years. You have $1 million. You're short by $844,000 even before accounting for inflation or investment losses. This is why people with $1 million saved still run out of money. This is why retirees are going back to work at age 70. This is why bankruptcy filings among seniors have tripled in the last 30 years. It's not because they were irresponsible. It's because the math was always broken. So, what do? How do you protect yourself from these retirement-destroying expenses? First, you stop believing the 4% rule. The 4% rule was based on historical data that may not apply to current conditions. It assumes you retire at 65 and die at 95. It assumes average healthcare costs. It assumes you don't help your kids. It assumes no long-term care needs. It assumes average inflation. It assumes favorable sequence of returns. That's a lot of assumptions. One or two of those assumptions breaking can destroy your plan. A safer withdrawal rate, if you want your money to last, is probably 3% to 3.5%, not 4%. That means if you want to withdraw $40,000 per year, you don't need $1 million. You need $1.14 million to $1.33 million. Suddenly, the goalpost moved significantly. Second, you plan for healthcare costs realistically. Assume $15,000 to $20,000 per year per couple for healthcare throughout retirement, not the $5,000 to $6,000 the calculators use. That's $450,000 to $600,000 over 30 years. If you're not budgeting for that, you're setting yourself up for disaster. Third, you have the uncomfortable conversation with your adult children right now, before you retire. You tell them clearly, "I love you. I will help you in true emergencies, but I cannot be your long-term financial support system because I need my retirement savings to last 30 years. If I run out of money, I become your financial burden instead." Set boundaries. Stick to them. Fourth, you seriously consider not retiring at 62 or 65. Every year you delay retirement is a year you're not drawing down your savings, a year your portfolio can grow, a year you're adding to your balance, and a year you're delaying those massive healthcare expenses. Working until 67 or 70, even part-time, can be the difference between running out of money at 80 and having money until 95. That's one. You downsize aggressively, sell the big house, move to a smaller, newer home that requires less maintenance, or move to a lower cost of living area. Take the equity from your house and add it to your retirement savings. A couple that downsizes from a $500,000 home to a $300,000 home and banks the $200,000 difference just extended their retirement by 5 years. Sixth, you buy long-term care insurance if you're in your 50s and healthy, or you set aside $250,000 to $300,000 of your retirement savings as a designated long-term care fund that you don't touch for anything else. Long-term care is the single biggest threat to your financial security. You need a plan for it. And finally, you accept that retirement might not look like the brochure. You might not travel the world. You might not play golf at expensive country clubs. You might not eat out 3 times a week. You might live a modest, simple, quiet retirement. And that's okay. That's not failure. That's reality for most people. The couples walking on beaches in retirement ads are either wealthy or actors. Most retirees are living normal, middle-class lives on tight budgets, and they're okay. The retirement crisis isn't that people don't have enough saved. Plenty of people have $500,000 or $750,000 or $1 million saved. The crisis is that the amount they have saved is inadequate for the actual expenses they'll face, and nobody told them the truth until it was too late. $1 million sounds like a lot of money. It sounds like wealth, but spread over 30 years, accounting for taxes, inflation, healthcare, housing, cars, helping kids, and all the other expenses that real life throws at you, $1 million is barely enough. For many people, it's not enough at all. If this video made you realize that your retirement plan is based on wildly optimistic assumptions, if you suddenly understand why your retired parents are stressed about money even though they seemed financially secure, share it with someone approaching retirement who needs to hear the truth. We need to stop selling people a retirement fantasy and start preparing them for retirement reality. Thanks for watching The Penny Plan, and I'll see you in the next one.